The show begins in 15 seconds. Grab a water and snack. Feel free to leave comments, and you supporting the channel would be amazing. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, the He and Him podcast, where we explore what it means to be our best selves by God's standards. I'm your host, Milton Craig Smith III, and today we are diving into a topic that might ruffle a few feathers. It is necessary for our spiritual and emotional growth. The importance of waiting until marriage before making any serious commitments, both emotionally and physically. Why? Because it's what God ordained us to do. You see, in today's world, we are constantly fed messages on doing whatever feels right in the moment, the concept of doing whatever makes you happy, and being able to have some type of fulfillment outside of God. Now, I'm not one to really tell people how to live or tell people what to do, but I will say that it has led to the conversation of toxicity, especially when it comes down to men. Now, men in the phase of our toxicity have been something that I can't necessarily say we haven't done or that we do. And I believe the reason we feed into toxicity as men is because of the fact we don't have a lot of leadership and guidance in the sense of who and what we're supposed to do or what we're supposed to be. A lot of times we're answering to the call of another person, answering to the call of our father, our mom, or somebody of that nature in order for us to be able to understand exactly what we're supposed to do. And I'm here to let you guys know that, there's nothing worse than you can do than have the worst leadership or the worst guidance. Now, if God didn't want us to be led and didn't want us to be guided, then I don't think we would have parents. The truth behind the matter is that I can't begin to even tell you how much I appreciate the factors of my mom leading and guiding me and getting me in touch with other gentlemen who were able to lead me and guide me in the way that men think. So that way I would have a sense of belonging, and that way I would have a sense of understanding of myself, as well as be able to have the sense of understanding who and what I am based upon what Christ wants me to be. Now, I must say, I don't know everything there is to know when it comes down to men, and I don't know everything there is to know when it comes down to women. But I will say this, that I know for a fact that you gentlemen out there right now are looking into a space and looking into a time of trying to figure out who and what you are, especially if you stopped and watched this video. I don't know everything there is to know, but I do know and understand that there's a love out there that you look and seek for, and that there's a lot of you out there who have the ability to be able to tap into that love and figure it out, but you don't know where to give it out to. Now, the toxicity portion comes in when those of us who are giving out that supposed love and are then, receiving something in regards to what we do not want, and then turning that onto a person and acting like it is something that they want. The manipulation factor of men and the manipulation factor of women was what causes the toxicity. Now, I know you're looking to hear the standard mantra, wait till marriage until you do those things. Wait till marriage. Well, I believe that is where we fall short, is because that in itself is something that we all can do. And that in itself is something that we all must do, is wait until marriage. Now, the reason I say waiting until marriage is important, it's not because of sex. It's also not just because of the factor of doing wifey things or doing husband material things. It's because in a marriage, there's one thing that becomes very apparent, that you guys are now closer together than you probably ever have been. You guys are building something with one another that nobody else can be able to build, no boyfriend or girlfriend. Why? Because there's legalities in marriage as well. Marriages normally have a lot of legalities when it comes down to what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to benefit one another and how we're supposed to benefit one another. Marriage in itself is also a standpoint in which many men and women can't even begin to fathom the amount of love that it takes in order for that marriage to be able to work. And anytime you operate outside of that marriage, and many of you can attest this, you start to feel as if there's something else, something more that you guys should be attaining from each other. And it's something more that you guys should be going after, especially as a couple. And when you don't do that, that is when your toxicity becomes something that kills. Now, I'm saying that word over and over again because I want it to be a buzzword. I want you guys to understand and feel me when I talk about this and know, like, I'm speaking on toxicity and trying to utilize it and say the same thing that we talk about, and we understand why I'm speaking on it because this is a male podcast. But there's so many people who have the mantra and the words or the catchphrases as toxic masculinity. Now, I am not one that I believe that that word is a byproduct or a fit all or an end all be all, but I do believe it has a place. And I believe what it is that we misplace the definition because a lot of us are not even in a position to make a judgment on the next person to call the next person toxic unless we're willing to unsurface or desurface the things within ourselves that also are causing toxicity. Now, when it comes down to you uncovering your own toxicity, are you ready to dive deep into the factors of what actually pulls at you and what actually is doing the things in you that cause you to do evil or cause you to do wrong? If you're not willing to do that, then you don't have the ability and you have no right to come down on another person or to speak ill of another person in any form or fashion. I'm not necessarily one to talk about people. I will talk about subjects that I have dealt with. Why? Because I have also been a player at one point in time in my life. I have also slept around at one point in time in my life. And I have also done things to women that they would probably consider toxic. But then when I look at those women and I look back on it and I say, I was involved with these women, were these all women somebody I should have been involved with? No. Were they helping me or aiding me in my toxicity? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Now, the reason I say yes is because some of them were just as toxic and we just mixed together and it caused a big convolution of BS, right? And then some of them were not. And then it came from me that I began to batter and abuse that woman emotionally to the point where I tore her down. And I helped us end our relationship based upon the factor that I had not healed from the things that I had been carrying. Now, a big part of my life that was toxic, if you will, as a young man, I began to believe that men had this right when it came down to it in order to have the women that they want because I was surrounded around men who basically did that. They wanted to have the women that they wanted. They wanted to have sex with the women that they wanted, and they went after those women, and those women would have sex with them, and then it would be a vicious cycle that woman wouldn't have sex with them anymore, or they would be chasing after that man, and then that man would break that woman's heart, and then basically leave that woman out there fighting for herself while she is trying to figure out why it is that this man played with her heart. And all the while, he's still over there trying to find a new woman to do the same thing to. Now, I grew up seeing that, thinking that this is a way of life in a sense. But I also knew that there was a right and wrong way to do it. It's just that that way was more fun, right? The wrong way was more fun because it felt good to be able to go out here and play in women's face. It felt good to go out here and be able to sleep with a bunch of women. That felt amazing. Until one day I had my own recollection of what it felt like when it happened to me, right? A lot of us are able to dish it out and necessarily can't take it. So when it happened to me, I was like, hey, hell no, I'm never doing this again because it hurt, man. It hurt beyond anything I would even try to say, that I've done because I can't tell you that I've felt what I've done. I can only tell you guys that I know what it's like to be in that position as a man who don't know nothing about what he know about, but I also know that, I am figuring this thing out as far as what is toxic and what is not. Now, a lot of gentlemen out here, in spaces that I've been in, I mean, you have to admit, fellas, that if you're playing around in women's faces, if you're doing nasty things to women, whether you believe you are or not, if you're hurting people in any form of fashion, I'm not trying to say a fashion that they could deem hurt because they don't understand exactly what's going on. Now, if you're honest and open and the woman is still hurt based upon the factor if you're dating, you say, I'm dating you and I'm dating other people. And then she pretends as if like you're not dating other people when it comes down to you guys maybe not spending that time together or you guys are maybe not doing this thing. Then it turns into, you're not doing anything wrong. In that case, that person just needs to have a grip on reality. But for those of you who are not doing those things, as far as the honesty is concerned, and you're wondering, why it is that these people are turning on me, then I would say, brother, you are a part of the toxic masculinity group. You are a part of the thing that's keeping all of us down, and you're a part of the mantra that helps keep this retro gnome vomit up, right? A lot of these people are regurgitating talking points too. You see them all over social media. You see these people doing their thing. And I have to say, like, respectfully, when is it going to be enough that, we start to not only take part in, but not only try to figure out, like, what the heck are we doing wrong and why the heck are we doing it so wrong? Like, when is it going to become enough that we aren't lazy about the factor of how we're treating people and what we're doing to people in order for them to dislike us? When is it going to be enough that we begin to band together as brothers and begin to face topics and deal with things face on? Because I promise you, gentlemen, If we begin to not only uphold the mantle of men, but also uphold the factor of who we are and what we are as men, then we would also believe and also start to notice that women would start to operate differently around us, not in the sense of us gaining more women, but us gaining the sense of respect apart from women. Like imagine this, right? Amongst the gentlemen, right? Maybe those gentlemen cheer you on and they talk about the things that you could do and all this stuff. But reality is what? A lot of times, a lot of those gentlemen are very much so not aware of the person that you truly are because those gentlemen don't understand the ramifications of you doing something to them that will cause heartbreak. So for to those gentlemen, yes, you could be praised and yes, you could be satisfied with yourself. But in reality, who are you and where are you in this life where you're going to pretty much go off not giving up the necessary tools in order for you guys to be successful in relationship, right? Or in partnership, i.e., in this regard, talking about marriage, taking it further. Where are you as a gentleman where you're able to actually be honest with your homeboys and tell them, I'm a dog, I'm a this, I'm a that. And why are you around other gentlemen who pretty much adjudicate that type of behavior or hype you up, if you will, right? And tell you that it's okay. If you're around gentlemen that don't help you grow as a man and don't help you accentuate you and take you up to new levels and heights, then you need to be alone. I'm just telling you, it's better to be alone than to be around a lot of gentlemen who don't accentuate you in the sense of helping you be your best self and especially helping you go after the call in your life. Because I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of ladies out here right now. The reason why things are so at disarray is because a lot of ladies are looking for the leadership that comes with us as men. But if we keep giving into toxic thought processes and giving into toxic ways of life, then we only can continue to spread that around. And if we're continuously spreading that around, then we're only doing each other a disservice, which causes less community, less family, and less love to go around altogether. Now, I'm not necessarily one to say that I know everything when it comes down to this subject, but I do know enough to understand that I have been toxic and now I do no longer want to be, not saying no longer as in today, but no longer did I decide to be. What I decided to do was be honest. And what happened is when I was honest with a lot of women, I began to gain a lot more women. And then when I was honest about the women that I gained to other women, I began to gain more women. And then when I was honest about these things, then I became conflicted when it came down to if I sleep with these women. So when I began to be honest about the fact of a woman that I slept with other women, then you start to lose women. So it can easily draw you back into a place of I'm gonna start lying in order to be able to keep this coochie around or this coochie around. But in reality, is like just tell the truth because all coochie ain't necessarily good coochie. You feel what I'm saying? And all women ain't necessarily good women. So it behooves you as a gentleman, like go ahead and forgive yourself enough to say, bro, I lied. I did wrong and I don't want to do this no more. And then go ahead and be honest with these people and be honest with these women so that these women can come out looking at you as a better person and no longer look at you as a sucker or somebody pretty much on the side of the street, who means nothing to them. But they look at you as somebody, a figurehead that they can respect. And now when you're honest with that woman and you're upfront with that woman, byproduct is that she begins to hold other men accountable to the way that you were with her. And I will say, a lot of these ladies out here are looking for that byproduct treatment. Now, a lot of you I know are going to come down on the argument when it comes down to this and talk about the fact that women always talk about money. Not real women. A lot of real women who understand what life is and understand what bills are and understand what children are if you have them and understand what responsibilities are. Their biggest thing is, are you able to manage the money that you have? And are you able to take the money that you have and be able to save money? If you don't have the money that you want, are you able to grow yourself as a gentleman in order to get to that level? If you don't want to be at that level, is she able to accept you as you are? If you are able to get to that level, is she still able to accept you as you are? Are you allowing the money make you, or are you making the money? These things become a sense of topic because there's a lot of people out here right now who do not have the ability to understand the difference between making money and money making them. So they believe wholeheartedly that if they get with a woman, then they can pretty much provide for that woman because now, that woman don't need for nothing. I can give her all the money in the world. That is not true. The money in the world don't necessarily mean that you have anything. All it means is that you have a little bit more dollars than me and that you're doing a little bit better than me in life. But it also means that you are at a point where if you just focus on the money, you lose out on a relationship and you lose out on your life with the woman. And you also lose out on the ability to be able to connect with her in such a way that you don't lose yourself, but you gain more of yourself because you start to understand yourself through the woman's eyes. And as you begin to understand yourself through women's eyes, it also gives you balance as a man man to understand that there is an emotional side to every person. And just as long as you guys understand to come together and never ever depart in the sense of marriage, then you won't waste your time with a lot of women because you don't want to come together with those who aren't necessarily going to be a person that you can stay with. So these things make sense. These things are something that I would say wholeheartedly are necessary and very true when it comes down to the accentuation of a partnership and the acceptance of a partnership and how and why we're supposed to be partners and how and why we're supposed to do the things we're called to do together. Like, why are we sitting up here bouncing around, sleeping with this person, sleeping with this person, feeding into toxicity when the goal is to find the people that you're supposed to be around, find your tribe, find your clique, your crew, but find the woman that you're supposed to be with and then be with that woman, and any other woman that you're not supposed to be with, you tell them to go away. Now, a little prayer I always say when I'm with the woman or I meet one, then I ask God straightforward. I say, Lord, if this person is not for me, please remove them out of my life. If this woman, or sometimes I call them by name, if that woman is not, if this woman, if this, Cheryl or whoever, if they're not for me, move them out of my life. And once you do that, then you have the ability to go back in time and look the devil dead in the face and tell him that you don't have an opposition for me because I'm always going to take counsel in my Father. I'm always going to take counsel in God. And I believe this is what this podcast is not only meant for, but I truly believe that we're supposed to be leading men in order for them to follow God so that we can stop this accentuation and stop this heaviness when it comes down to what is being a man, especially in today's society. Because if you be a man in today's society, if you be a man based upon society standards, society will then turn on you and call you toxic because society itself doesn't know that being a man naturally means that you're going to look for opposite opponents and you're going to look for many women. But it takes a man to control himself and put himself under the guise of God and say, okay, Lord, how is it that you want me to handle the women that you have created? It's in me to talk to all of these women, but how is it that you want me to handle this? And I know some of you may oppose that and say, no, that's not right. That's fine. You don't have to believe I'm right. All you have to understand that a man's natural inclination is a woman, and a man's natural inclination is to talk to many women. Hence the reason why Old Testament times men were allowed to have concubines. And then Jesus had to come along to make a new covenant because he started to realize that is not going to work based upon the factor of the men who were in power who began to take concubines to themselves just because they could, and they began to abuse the power. So men said, okay, for one woman comes every man. Every man must have one woman. No more of these concubines. And some people still believe in that life and polygamy and all of this stuff, but that's up to them, just like anything else. The reality is, if you've listened to this up until this point, then you are making a decision and you are saying, I do not want to be anything other than what I'm supposed to be. And I also don't want no parts of nobody telling me what it is and what it isn't to be a man, except for God. I believe in God. And I believe that we have given ourselves and we have fallen way too short, and we have not done everything we can possibly in order to understand what it is not to be toxic. But I believe the answer lies in the factor of how it was at the beginning when Adam and Eve were together. Adam and Eve were made for one another. Eve was made from the man. So you have to ask God, where is my rib? Where is my Eve? Understanding that if you get your Eve, just like you did, if you follow her in a sense of not praying first, then you also fall into toxicity because that's what Eve did. She bit the apple, which was something that God said don't to do, and it led to where we are today, where toxicity rules and it abides among us. So in order for us to dispel of it, we have to not eat of the fruit of the world, which God says don't eat. We have to put ourselves in a position with our Eve to make sure that we don't leave her alone in the garden in order to tend to something that she was never able and never supposed to do. You were supposed to be with her and protect her and let her know, baby, if this is happening, if this serpent or the evil things in this world are coming to cloud your judgment, then I'm going to protect you because you don't need that around you. But if you're not doing that as a gentleman, you're only doing yourself a disservice. There's a lot of gentlemen out here right now who will listen to this and understand where I'm coming from because you, my friend, you are trying to protect a loved one. You are trying to protect the woman of your dreams. You are trying to protect the woman that God has for you. And if you're trying to protect that woman, or when you protect that woman, the biggest thing you know for a fact that will come against you is the factor of she trying to you being used by the enemy in order to get to you, or everything else being used by the enemy to get to you. And the only way you do not give into toxic behaviors, this goes inside of a marriage and outside of a marriage, is if you pray, counsel with God, and ask God how to operate in the situation, so that way you don't have to worry about it so much. Gentlemen, this is my time. I love you, and thank you for another great episode of the He and Him podcast. Deuces. Thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that God blesses your family and you, and that you comment in return to let me know what you thought of this episode.